Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily market outlook for futures and Forex, where we take a look at our big six markets and put together a plan for trading tomorrow, in this case, for trading on 2/7 of 17. Now, first of all, when we're taking a look at our big six markets, we have 3 on the futures markets and 3 on the Forex markets, and they're the common pairs, gold, crude, and the Dow, as well as the euro, the pound, and the yen. And really all we're looking to do is formulate an attack method for tomorrow so that we have a good idea of what to expect going into the overnight session, as well as going into the US session tomorrow. Now, before we jump into all of our charts, as always, swing on over to Slingshot Futures, scroll down and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter so you can sign up and be added to our newsletter list so you don't miss a beat and know exactly when these come out every single day, and you won't miss a single one of them. And along with that, every morning, also make sure to check out our morning prep for all of the levels that we're looking at trading. And these are all the major levels. You can find those right down at the bottom of the blog, and you can load those up, and those will show you the big levels that we're looking for that day, again, for the big six. Now, first of all, let's jump on into gold. Gold overall, very strong bullish move once we finally started moving, right? We look at the morning session, zooming out, it looks beautiful to the upside. You wouldn't want to do anything else but buy. But when we opened up this morning at 8:20, we had this. Lots of back and forth. It was a big gap higher. Chances are we may see a little bit of a pullback before we get continuation to the upside. So we were actually shorting in the room, looking for movement to the downside on that pullback before it started kicking off into going onto the lunchtime session for that big run higher. Now, looking at the morning session here, we can see that they started out a nice little ascending wedge working its way up. They broke out of it and actually formed an even stronger bull channel higher. Now, one thing that I always like to do is leave on those earlier channels and wedges. They can be big clues in terms of the way that the market responds. And you can see, once they broke above it, they use it as support quite a bit, even before that final move up. So never get rid of the channels completely. Always a good idea to leave them on there to see how they want to respond. But now that we have a very big move up, a possible 3-push top, very common to find a slight pullback coming soon, or at least around the corner. So chances are what we're looking at is the buyers just don't want to buy this high anymore. We're very extended to the upside. We're at the top of a possible channel. There's a good reason to believe that buyers are going to wait for a slight pullback. Now, a pullback is relatively kind of in the air. How big of a pullback? It might just be a pullback to the moving average. It might be a deeper pullback down to what I would like to see at around 1232.2. Now, depending on how long that takes, we may also see them want to potentially hold a little bit tighter. It is pretty obvious that they have a aggressive bull channel working its way up here. So all they may be able to do is get down to the bottom of that, and we find another reversal back up. So what I'm looking for right now is 2 major locations. First of all, the big location is at 1234.3. That's the slightly more aggressive one. And then the more easy, I guess would be the best way to put it, it would be a bounce off 32.2. I would love to see them come back to that area. That's where we really started breaking out to the upside. I would want to see the buyers defend that location aggressively for a possible bounce off 32.2 as well. So looking to buy, but not up here. We need to wait for a little bit of a pullback before we jump on board with the buy side. Over on crude oil, slightly different story, quite bearish. And in fact, very bearish to the point where they had a bear channel working down, broke lower. Now, we talk about this a lot. This is a low probability scenario. It's not very often where you have a bear channel that breaks lower and actually sticks around. So because we have a low probability event occurring here, that tells us that the bears obviously mean business. But the problem is they've been selling so aggressively down here that there are so many different gaps, the market is going to be magnetized to want to attempt to come back up. Now, a lot of times when it's this aggressive, it might not come back to this area. But what I really want to see is a push into 53.39 to 49, then look for selling pressure to shove the market back down. At the moment, it looks like it's finding a very hard time getting higher, so it might have to, go sooner than later to the upside, or we may just find the sellers right back in again looking for a new low. If that does occur before coming back to at least 53.30, chances are we're probably going to find the low, maybe a little bit underneath it, and then go into a range for a little while instead. There's just not enough sellers on board at that point if we don't get a little bit of a correction first. So looking for a correction up and then looking to sell into it for another press down. Over on the Dow, that 20,000 level is still haunting us. We've got that 20,000 level. This has just been hanging around for a long time now, right there. Pretty hard to miss, but let's make it bright and obvious so that you won't miss it, even if it's tough. We'll make this let's go with a lawn green or a chartreuse. Really blatantly obvious. You can't miss that one, right? 20,000 level. We've been playing around at this 20,000 level for a long time now, for the past few days once we started pushing into it, and we just cannot seem to get away from it. And you can see the strength that that level is putting on the market, both buyers and sellers in the same place. Now, we started off the morning with a big run higher just before 10 o'clock, and with that big run higher, we found a push back up to a new high, and then a complete failure right back down. Arguable that they may have put in a little head and shoulders there. Either way, though, we know that the bears are controlling it at the moment, and we're likely in a range. This is just a huge range. We made a push down to a new low, to a new high, to a new low, to a new high. Where are we probably going? Well, we're probably going to a new low, or at least an attempt to get a new low. Now, it's hard to ignore that massive bullishness that came in right down here. We had the breakout attempt to the downside to try to get the sellers going. Completely fell apart. When it came back to the lows, the buyers picked it up like it was candy and rocketed outside of that move. So the fact that it was so aggressive on the bottom, put in this massive bull candle right here, tons of wick on the lows as well, and that also puts in a potential area where the buyers are going to want to defend. So that means that if we can get price to pull back down to 948 to 932, I would love to see some buying opportunities in here to push the market back up, maybe to even retest that 20,000 level once again. Now, it is a range, so we're looking to buy low, looking to sell high, and try to stay out of the middle, and maybe try to stay away from that 20,000 mark as well. It seems to be causing a little bit of trouble. Over on the euro, inside the Forex pairs, we have a relatively bearish move to start off the morning, but when we came into 8 or 9 o'clock, going on 10 o'clock, we started picking up on notes of the buyers kind of sweeping in and taking the market a little bit further up. Now, this is forming an ascending wedge, and generally speaking, an ascending wedge shouldn't break higher most of the time, and even if it does, it's probably going to be a failure. So what I would like to see here, given the overall bearish trend, I would like to see them attempt to break higher and fail, right? Show some good signs of failure, especially around that 75-77 area, which is also a major daily level of support and resistance. I'd love to see that area retested and then find some push back to the downside. Now, we're more likely to transition into a range. Chances are we're not just going to plummet all the way down to a new low. We're probably going to grind our way lower. And what I would like to see is it seems to be there's a little bit of a shelf here, right? The sellers tried breaking out right there. When they came back, they even retested it and held it, but they couldn't make that new low. And that's a big clue, because the failure to make that new low, push back up, then resistance turns into support, turns into support, turns into support, turns into support. You get the idea, and a big rocket ship out of there. So if we can get a pullback, especially if it comes after a trap high, get a big push down to that 72.92 area, and then find immediate support to give it another run to the upside. So kind of looking to do both here on the euro, buy and sell, just has to be in the right place. Over on the pound, a little more range bound, slight bearish tone to it. I mean, you can see drawing across the highs, we have several attempts to come back, and they just keep missing it. Now, that said, coming off of the lows, we're also seeing them test the bottom edge and a possible twin reversal trap low. So the buyers do have an argument here, but the issue that I'm seeing here is simply that, well, the sellers are gaining strength. We're making lower highs. When they try to come back to test the wedge, they make another new lower high, and it's just kind of fanning that wedge to the downside. You can kind of see it fanning its way lower. So with that bearishness imposed on the market, the buyers may try here, but they're going to have a heck of a lot of stuff to work through beforehand to even be able to get up there. And by the time they do get a breakout above that 24,791 area, they just got more resistance to work through. So unless we get a big reversal up, then look for a pullback to buy. I'm looking to sell this on an attempted break higher and a failure, looking above 24,791 for a possible sell trap, and then looking for a push back down. Now, same thing that we're seeing on the euro, we're seeing on the pound. Big area of congestion inside here. In the pound's case, 24,544, we're seeing a big bounce that stopped that entire down move. They retested it, broke through it, resistance, 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 broke through it, support. So what I would like to see is this level retested again. See that sell move off the highs, push down into the lows, or the lows first and then the highs, either way, looking for support to come in at that 24,544. So same thing here on the pound, looking to play both sides of the market. And then finally, on the yen, a little bit more bearish tone to it. We do have a weekend gap that did fill in the overnight session. Big drop lower, but then that drop, they made it to a new high, and then they made it to a new low. So we started thinking, okay, well, maybe this is just a range, but they made a lower high, started collapsing back to the downside and formed a new bear channel lower. Now, the bear channel lower does have a major objective to the downside at 111,509, and that objective is still open. And as long as the sellers can take it relatively soon, we can see they're putting in a shelf here too. I guess a ceiling in this case. They're putting in a ceiling on the market. If we can start breaking down, especially above rising support, there could be a short-term sell opportunity for a good 20 pip move lower before we start finding more bouncing. Now, one thing to keep an eye on, possible wedge bottom could come into play a little bit ahead of that. But overall, still looking on the sell side on the yen until we can finish off that major objective. And then from there, maybe a correction back up to retest that breakout point at around 112.043. So very interesting day of trading overall. Tomorrow, we're not anticipating a whole lot. We do have a little bit of news. We have the JOLTS job openings tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We also have the IV PMI out of the Canada section there. The Canadian dollar has that news at 10 o'clock as well. So we got a little bit of news tomorrow, but not a whole lot. So chances are, at least my fingers are crossed, that we get another good day of trading tomorrow as well. So as we always say, make that plan, trade the plan, follow your rules, and you will be A-OK until tomorrow. Have a good one.